Hello there, artists. This is Miss Grandy, and today we're going to learn how to make our own sketchbooks from scratch. Pretty cool. I'm excited, and I hope you guys are excited too. So you're going to need to grab a few supplies. But first, I just wanted to talk to you about sketchbooks. They're a really awesome tool to use to practice drawing every single day. You don't even need to spend a lot of time using your sketchbook. Just 5 or 10 minutes a day is all you need to really get better and to practice your art drawing skills. So we're going to be using these sketchbooks for a little club titled Daily Doodle. And Daily Doodle is something where I'll give you a daily doodle prompt, and you can use that to get your imagination going and practice drawing in your sketchbook every single day. All right, let's get started. So first you're going to need to grab a few supplies. I used regular printer paper for the inside of my sketchbook, so you'll need 10 pieces of paper. If you have any other type of paper you want to use, that's totally fine. And then you're going to want to choose a cover for your sketchbook. I used an old map, but you can use an old note card or really any kind of fun paper that you like. Note cards work really well because they're already folded and they often have really cool designs on the outside. But I had this cool old map paper, so I thought that would be fun. So you're going to want to fold your cover in half. Whatever you choose to use, fold it in half. And then you're going to take your 10 pieces of paper for the inside of your sketchbook, and you're going to fold those in half also. Now your paper on the inside might not fit the size of your cover, so I'll show you how to edit that later. But for now, you'll fold those 10 pieces of paper in half, hamburger style. Okay, and you're going to want to make sure that you press really hard along the folded line. That's a really important step. So I actually took a wooden stick that I use for mixing paint, and I use that to press down the fold even harder. So it really creates a hard crease there. And that's super important because that's going to be the inside of your notebook. And we want it to be very secure so your notebook doesn't fall apart as you're using it. So really press down that line. If you need to use a ruler or really anything that you can find to help press it down. All right, now once you've done that, straighten all your papers out so they're nice and neat. And then you're going to find your cover, whatever you've decided to use for your cover. Mine is already folded in half, so I'm going to place my folded papers inside just like so. Now you see that you've started to kind of make your notebook, so your cover's on the outside and your papers are on the inside. Now obviously my papers don't fit inside my cover, so I'm going to trim those off and make sure that they fit. So I'll use my pencil and trace around the outside edge of my cover, just like this. And I'm going to do that on both sides because that will help me to cut around and know exactly where I need to cut to make sure the inside fits. Okay, so then you'll remove your inside papers. Now you can see those lines that I drew. What I suggest is only cutting a few pieces of paper at a time. When you have 10 pieces that you're cutting at the same time, it's really, really hard to cut in a straight line. Trust me, I tried and it just doesn't work. So grab your scissors, grab a couple pieces and cut along that line. If your paper already fits inside your notebook perfectly, then you can skip this step. All right, so this is only for if you've used a smaller cover and you need to trim your inside papers. So you see those edges are a little jaggedy. That's because I'm cutting a few pieces at once and my scissors aren't very sharp. So if you are in the same boat as me, just trim a couple pieces at a time. So you'll have to go back and retrace around your paper and then cut again. So really you just want all your inside papers to be the same size. And the cool thing is we've used 10 pieces of paper, but when we fold them in half, they magically turn into 20 pieces. Pretty cool. So your sketchbook is going to be 20 pages, but you can make more anytime you need. All right, so now I have trimmed all my inside papers. I'm going to make sure they are straight and in line They're a little jaggedy, like I said, so I might trim them a little bit just to keep them straight, but it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Don't stress. It's just a sketchbook, so it's great for practice. All right, so I'm grabbing my scissors. I'm going to trim a little bit more just because it's going to stick out from outside the cover, and I don't really want that. So once I'm happy with how my inside pages look and feel, I'm going to put them inside the cover. And look at that. We just need to bind it now because it's not going to stay together on its own. But it's starting to look like a sketchbook, and it's pretty cool. So now we'll talk about binding our sketchbook. There's a few different options here. You can use a rubber band, you can use a metal brad. These are pretty cool if you are using thick paper like watercolor paper, and you can just attach your papers like little paint swatches. We're not going to use that for our sketchbook, but I will show you that later. And then you could also use something like string or ribbon or washi tape. Really get creative here. Anything that you have at home that you think you can use to keep your notebook together, you can choose anything like that. So I've grabbed a few supplies that might work. I also love clothespins, especially when I'm sketching in my book and I want to hold a page down. It's a really great way to do that. Okay. We're going to try a rubber band first. This is a really easy, probably the easiest way to bind your book. I've given you all a big rubber band. So if it's too big, you can try a smaller one if you have a smaller one at home. Mine's a little smaller here because I used a smaller book. So you're going to wrap it around the edge here, and you want to make sure mine got all twisted. So you can go through and kind of straighten it out. Make sure it's flat along your pages. Just like that. You might have to really work with it for a second. And then you fold your book closed. And what happens is you can move that rubber band to the back side of your sketchbook. So you really don't even see it. And there it is in the middle. The nice thing about having a rubber band to bind your sketchbook is that you can pull pages out if you need to. So it's not permanently bound, it's not permanently stuck in there. You can easily slide papers out if, I don't know, if you want to frame something or if you're really happy with one of your drawings. So I kind of like the rubber band method myself. Another method I'll show you, whoops, there's my cat, is a fancy ribbon. You can also use just regular old string, whatever you have lying around your house, but I had this really pretty floral ribbon, so I thought that would be kind of fun. So I'm bringing it inside the fold of my notebook, and then I'm going to tie it on the outside. I had a little bit of a hard time tying it, but you can play around. This is a slippery ribbon, so it just didn't really want to get tight enough. So I don't know. This wasn't my favorite way. And you'll see here, I'm going to show you how to pull out some pages of paper. So another thing is you can slide that ribbon to the other side if you're drawing and it's in the way. So it is kind of nice. It's just a way to keep all your papers together. And it looks pretty. So if you wanted to pull out some papers, it's really as easy as this. You just slide them out, and you can easily put them right back in there if you need to. But the downside of this is if you really want your sketchbook to stay together, I wouldn't suggest using a ribbon. Here is my favorite all-time method. This, we're going to use a string, and we're going to have to poke some holes. So I used a little thumbtack. And you're going to poke 2 holes in the middle of your sketchbook, right along the seam there. Yeah, and then once you have poked your holes, you might have to kind of wiggle that little pin around. You want to be so careful here. You might want to ask a parent for help. If you're using a little pokey thumbtack or maybe a paper clip, don't poke your finger, okay? Be very, very careful. So then what I'm going to do is cut a piece of string. Now I'm going to try and poke my string through that hole. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of trouble because that hole is so tiny. So I took a little tiny screwdriver and I made my hole a little bit bigger. You might have to do that. Look around your house and see what you have that would work to poke a hole. Now I easily got that string through, so I know that works, and I'm going to have to do the same thing to the other hole because my string didn't fit through. So I'm going to bring my screwdriver into that tiny hole and kind of twist it around, make it a little bit bigger, open it up, and I'm going to bring the other side of my string, the other end, through that hole. So now I have both strings coming out the outside of my sketchbook. I'm going to tie them in a knot. You can use your finger to hold that knot down. Sometimes I like to use my toe if I'm sitting on the ground. It works really well. And then I just suggest using a strong knot here. So just like you're tying your shoes in a double knot. Now once you've tied your knot, you can trim that string. It's a little long, so I've trimmed mine a little shorter. And then I slid the knot inside the hole so I can't even see it on the outside. And it looks really nice and really clean. And that is going to work really well for your sketchbook because your papers are not going to slide out. They're going to stay intact, and you can easily flip through, and you've just made your own book. Oh, hi, Petunia. She's very curious when I'm creating art on the floor. She wants to be a part of it. So way to go. You guys are all done with your sketchbook. Now you can start sketching, and I will see you next time. Awesome work today.